T-minus 10, 9, 8,
The clock is
7.
operating. We're underway.
Tranquility Base here.
Endeavor, go at throttle up.
Chow and Sharipov are moving smoothly through the spacewalk procedures this morning, moving about 40 minutes ahead as they move on to the next task. This is Mission Control Houston. You can now see a crew member coming into view on the right side of the Piers docking compartment and airlock. The nano satellite, which is a Russian experiment, is attached to the crane or ladder on the outside of the Piers docking compartment there. Sharipov will be deploying that satellite momentarily while Chow takes pictures of its deployment.
Solejan, looks like you got to the docking compartment already, didn't you? Yes. We have. We still have some time before having to jettison the nanosatellite, so we want you to take the covers inside. Okay. Solejan says, I am at the GST at this time. Leroy? Yes. Solejan says, I could take the ISN antenna out of DC if you want. Sure. Leroy answered, sure. Okay. Solejan says, okay, let me...
Володя, все как в кино.
Saljan says, Volodya, everything is like in the movies, and it's hard to believe.
Все как в кино.
What do you mean, like in the movies? This was Vladimir's question.
Слышишь, как кино, говорю,
I was saying, like in the movies, the scenery around us is just like in the movies. Okay. Also, I see that the first LED is not on. Copy that, Saljan. That's correct. The second LED should not be on.
This is Mission Control Houston. Cosmonaut Saljan Sharipov seen at the top of the screen here handling the nano satellite, which he will be deploying momentarily.
Leroy, what are you doing right now? I am right now inside the DC, and I have secured the KPU tool carrier inside, and I am retrieving the ISN. Leroy, please do not forget to take the cable holder, cable clamp from the KPU kit. Leroy answered okay.
An astronaut Leroy Chow is seen at the lower side of the screen, placing equipment back inside the docking compartment and airlock and retrieving equipment needed for the rest of the spacewalk.
And you will take the wire tie at this time, is that correct? This was the question from the ground, and Saljan answered yes. Right now I am removing the wire tie. Okay. Let's wait for Leroy. This was the ground comment.
Chow was also instructed by Mission Control Moscow to place the protective covers from the antennas into the docking compartment and airlock for storing.
Что там, Лера? Сначала я фотографирую тебе, да?
Saljan asked Leroy, are you okay? Is everything okay? And Leroy is saying, yes, I want to take more pictures.
Да. Сейчас. Секундочку.
Leroy is asking Saljan if he's ready, and Saljan says, Volodya, so what's going on? Should we go ahead and do it?
Давай находится
We're
НСМ.
ground is
Готов.
asking what Leroy is doing, and Saljan is responding that Leroy is ready to take pictures.
Так. Выбирай.
Take
Решает. Выбирай на
ground says take the nano satellite, select the direction. Saljan says, yes, I have selected the direction.
Герой готов фотографировать?
Leroy, are you ready to take pictures? This was the question from the ground. And Leroy is answering, yes, stand by a minute. Okay, we're standing by.
This is Mission Control Houston. Cosmonaut Salijan Sharipov will be deploying a Russian satellite momentarily as we see astronaut Leroy Chow preparing to take photographs of the satellite, which will go to the right of the screen in this retrograde direction.
Salijan says photograph first. Ground says yes. Please, you have a go for photographing. Salijan says yes. He's taken picture. Okay, now are you ready? 1, 2. I'm ready. And off it goes. We are watching. It's rotating a little bit. This was Salijan's comment, but it should be okay. This was also Salijan speaking. Ground says that we continue monitoring and observing it. Okay, guys. You can go ahead and slowly translate towards the EVA letter. Crew response, copy.
Sharipov, as you can see, has deployed the Russian nano satellite. It's an experiment that contains a transmitter, and while it orbits the Earth, it is expected to help develop small satellite control techniques, monitor satellite operations, and develop new attitude system sensors for the Russian experts.
Salijan says now we'll have to work a little. It's okay. I think one of the crew members said, hold on a minute. It's kind of far. This was Salijan speaking.
The next task for the crew members will be to install a Global Positioning System unit, or GPS unit. The crew members are moving along smoothly in the timeline of today's spacewalk, now about 30 minutes ahead of schedule. The flight controllers here in Houston and in Moscow are working together to coordinate the handover of attitude control to the control moment gyroscopes, which are a non-propulsive system in the U.S. segment, to prevent the Russian thrusters from firing on the aft end of the Zvezda service module where the next work site is.
At this time. Okay, copy that. But we are, the ground says, but we are getting ready to translate, right? Reminder that we go to the long handrail of the small diameter and then wait for the go from the ground to continue activities, continue operations. Salijan says, okay, understood.
Что там наверх?
Anything new there? This was Elijan's question.
Саша, этот держатель, я не закрепил, да? Не знал держатель. Это же держатель. Чуть-чуть.
Leroy says, I did not
Винти.
take the clamp here.
Ладно. И... Держишь, да?
Are you holding it? Yes. I'm holding it.
Опа. Держишь туда. Обратно.
This is Mission Control Houston. Houston watching a view from the starboard one camera of the crew members as they gather their equipment for the rest of the spacewalk. We'll be installing a GPS unit on the aft end of this Zvezda service module momentarily. Here on the ground, the flight control teams here in Houston and Moscow are continuing to work through a procedure to hand over attitude control to the U.S. segment. The actual attitude control handover has taken place. The control moment gyroscopes are controlling the space station's attitude, and the Russian flight control team is now working to disable the thrusters on these Zvezda service module before the crew members move on to that work site.
Вперед. Да.
Did not copy.
Хорошо, ребят.
Ground says very well, guys.
Осторожно. Как не ворочаться?
What handrail are you at right now? Hold on a minute.
Хорошо. Я держу.
One of them says, I'm holding it.
Вот этот мы должны фотографировать. Там.
Leroy says, we need to take pictures.
Да, видите эту зону? Мы увидим. Ну, потом мы фотографируем.
Ground says, yes, you need to photograph.
Все.
I've got it.
Следующий установлен прямо на цель, да? Володя, держать.
Volodya, so the next clamp is which one? Volodya says 26, 47, and also 26, 46 closer to the end cone. Okay, copy.
Установлен.
Installed, clamp installed. Okay, copy, guys. Both are installed.
Принят.
Copy.
Значит, до тени у нас еще минуток 5.
We have about 5 minutes. Please
На дальнейшем маршруте.
take your time and look at your further translation path. From 2646, you need to translate towards 2644. That's closer to the thruster unit along plane 4. The handrail that is close to the thruster unit, which is 2644.
Дальний конец.
If you grab onto that handrail, you need to grab onto the corner or side of the handrail that is farthest from the thrusters. Okay, copy that.
И надо бы себя, так сказать, переместить
And also
повыше.
position yourselves well above the thrusters and grab onto the next handrail, which is number 2643. Copy.
This is Mission Control Houston. Chow and Shripov have installed the cable clamps at the certain location they're at on the outside of the Zvezda service module and are now moving back towards the aft of the service module where they will install the GPS unit. The ground telling them to take care and the handrails that they use and where they use them close to the thruster areas. While even though those are inhibited and won't be firing, they have to take care not to expose these spacesuits to previous firings residue still on the area.
Oh, antenna, другой antenna здесь, любительский радио.
And there's another antenna here, radio antenna here. That's FM. EV operators talking among themselves.
Ага. Так, антенна 4 метра. Нет, вот она.
So this is the antenna.
Leroy,
Leroy,
когда будем
go ahead.
Мишень? Да.
Okay.
Сюда очень сложно подойти вдвоем.
It's difficult to approach the zone and we'll need to take the picture of the target, MBM target. Yes,
В коем случае нельзя задеть.
but please do not touch this antenna.
Не вертикально.
And we'll take the pictures from this side, not vertically but at an angle.
На продолжение станем.
We'll have it to attach yourself here at the continuation, at the extension.
Володя. Опять.
Volodya,
А нельзя сфотографировать
go ahead.
мишень до перемещения антенны ОНА?
Do we have to take picture before translating the
Потому что
high gain antenna? You want to know if you have to take pictures now?
Leroy уже там.
No, Leroy is already up there,
Перемещение из положения 2 в положение
and prior to moving antenna, high gain antenna from position 2 to position 1, it is difficult to take picture from this area, but
Порше 27-40
actually
на текущем агрегате. Сбоку.
actually the view will be the same from handrail 2648.
Только для стыковки 27-48.
2748.
Вот в это
In this area,
спокойно мог бы туда зафиксировать свой один
Leroy could
оттуда сфотографировать.
tether up to this handrail and take picture of the antenna from here,
Текущую мишень будем задевать.
because otherwise we might touch the docking target. There's nothing else to hold on to. Okay, guys, you translate down there, up there, and then
И будет нормально, я так.
call us down.
Слишком близко, полметра не надо подходить, сам понимаешь.
Leroy says we are not supposed to approach the antenna more than half a meter. How do you want us to take the picture?
Сбоку нормально?
If we take it at an angle, is it okay?
Сбоку нормально.
Yes, Salijan. There is no requirement to take a picture from the vertical positions. You can take the picture at an angle. EVA's copy.
This is Mission Control Houston, Chow and Shripov working on installing the associated cabling with the GPS unit and also discussing the photography of an antenna that is installed on the outside of the service module that Mission Control Moscow will command to different positions. It's commandable to move from 1 to 2, position 1 to position 2, and Chow will take photographs and confirm its position for Mission Control Moscow.
Nothing on the way of that structure.
Нет.
No, nothing.
Вот то, что штат установлено. И все, больше... Так, разве что один штырек.
Well, it's installed nominally. Maybe this rod, this small pin.
Так, посмотрите.
Look here, Leroy.
Так. Там вроде не должен ничего.
No,
Ничто не должен.
nothing is going to interfere with it. Ground copies. Now, photo imaging of the installed antenna. What do you think? If you use the flashlight, could you take a picture? No. Negative.
Не получится.
No way.
По-моему, понимаешь, объектив-то широкоугольный, но...
It's a wide-angle camera.
Я использую свой фонарик.
Leroy says,
Может быть,
maybe I will use my flashlight and you Salijan, will take a picture.
постарается.
Okay, guys, actually, we would like the crew to take pictures using the camera and flashlights.
This is Mission Control Houston. You can see Chow and Shripov working at the aft end of the Zvezda service module now 3 hours and 7 minutes into this morning's spacewalk.
Narrowed down there. If we move backwards, there would be not enough illumination. Illumination would not be sufficient.
Now working to photograph the newly installed GPS unit on the Zvezda service module. They're in the dark side of the orbit right now, but
And
sunlight and sunrise should be coming in about 5 minutes from now.
that's affirmative, Leroy.
Чтоб не запутать, как бы это все...
The crew members also took photos and inspected an antenna drive area, which is a communications antenna for the service module, and confirmed to Mission Control Moscow its location and position, and that nothing was obstructing its movement from position to position.
You're in that zone, take a rest, and we'll call you up later. We agree this is the way to do it. Agreed.
У тебя право пришли есть, да? Знаешь,
Leroy, you have a range, right?
вот это штуку надо будет...
You know what we have to do?
Надо проволока привязать. Проволока
We have to use a wire tie to secure it, says Salijan.
Сейчас у меня есть топливный здесь.
Yes, I have a handle here. Very good.
This mission controls Houston. You can see in this view provided by a camera on the starboard one truss segment. Look past a solar array on the Zarya module. The crew members are working at the aft end of the International Space Station
Salut, Jean.
on the Zvezda service module.
When you're taking pictures of the antenna, please take pictures of the thrusters, roll thrusters nearby. And if there is any contamination, take pictures of the handrails. No contamination. Leroy says, Sarijan says there is no contamination. Well, Salijan, we just asked you to do that, but we're happy to know there is no contamination.
Там как будто внутри, на краю,
As to the thrusters,
самих этих двигателей, то есть камеры, да? Да, согласен. Там близкий как будто серый намазан.
there is something, you know, has been lacquered. Yes, as if been the edges have been lacquered, but I don't think that is liquid. Leroy says, I agree. The ground says, yes, I remember. It was on the Mir station.
Как бы налет, понимаешь?
Leroy says it as if it is
Есть толщина определенная от этого.
swelled.
То есть видно сначала налет был, потом кусками оторвался, улетел, и часть осталась.
As if some part, well,
Ну как
got off and flew away.
вокруг
Like some,
мазали.
well, as if it is, looks like it was lubricated. You know, these thrusters are in the zone where the handrails are.
Почему-то если бы вот здесь железные, да,
You know, everything is made of
конечно,
metal here.
видно, знаешь. И там постоянно и остаются навсегда.
And I think, well, the elements made of metal are of the white
Три капли, видишь?
color. I can see 3 drops. They are dried.
Они как будто капнули туда.
Yes, as if
По 20 сантиметров диаметр.
some drops of 20 centimeter in diameter next to the thruster.
Подходим к освещенности. Вы там это тоже
Pitch thruster.
попробуйте, чтобы в кадр попало. Очень интересно.
Try to take pictures so as to cover
Даже непонятно откуда.
those drops or droplets. I can't understand what could be the origin of those droplets. Where could they come from?
Вот солнце.
Oh, the sun is rising, says Leroy. Okay, congrats, guys, with the sunrise. Let's continue.
This is Mission Control Houston. Leroy Chow and Saljan Sharipov can move on with the activities of the spacewalk, already still working well ahead of the timeline. They'll now photograph the newly installed GPS unit now that the space station has passed into sunrise. Mission Control Moscow also requested that the crew members take photographs of thruster areas, that they are in the location of roll thrusters on the Zvezda service module. They take the opportunity many times during spacewalks to photograph exterior hardware, to downlink to experts on the ground to analyze the condition of the hardware on the outside of the space station.
слышно.
Yes, we're collecting this safety tethers. And let's
The International Space Station is passing over the southern tip of South America, now experiencing an orbital sunrise.
translation.
Как сюда?
But please look around. Do not leave anything there. Yeah, we'll try. We'll do our best, as usual, says Leroy.
Да, ну что?
Leroy, there is no much room there. That's FM. Yeah.
Напомню еще, о каком месте ты говорил удобном для фотографирования.
Solution, will you please remind us once again, what is the best position to take pictures?
Курс.
Nice.
Давай зафиксируешь.
Leroy, secure it.
О, отлично.
Excellent.
Ближе, ближе.
Closer, closer.
Далеко. Легко сказать.
Far away. It's easy to say closer, closer. Yeah, you're right.
Chow and Sharipov are now picking the best location to take photographs of the high-gain communications antenna that Mission Control Moscow asked them to take pictures of to confirm its location and position.
Я тебя буду поддерживать.
And I'll support you. I'll hold you.
Я тебя держу.
I'm holding.
Да, я тебя буду держать.
I'll hold you.
Вперед. Давай.
Uh,
Ближе, ближе, так.
Okay.
Я тебя за печатку буду держать. Давай.
I'll be holding you like this.
Сейчас, сейчас.
Wait a sec.
The International Space Station currently orbiting over the Atlantic Ocean, just off the coast of South America, at an altitude of 193 nautical miles, or about 223 statute miles.
Хорошо. Может, повыше пойдет.
The crew members are working on the near the aft end of the Zvezda service module and aren't in any of our camera views. We do have this view from a camera on the U.S. Destiny laboratory module showing the Earth below.
Speaking simultaneously. You understand the illumination is not that good. I'm not sure if the picture is going to be good. Copy, Leroy.
Хорошо.
Good, Leroy.
This is a view from a camera on the starboard one truss segment looking back towards the Russian segment. Crew members are working behind the solar arrays that are extending out from Zarya and Zvezda.
It is well seen. LSV2, LSV number 3 and number 2. Yes, I can see, says Leroy. Okay, Leroy, try to take a picture of it.
Да? фотоаппарат не хочу. Я хочу только фото, потому что мало свет.
Well, the illumination is not good. It's not sufficient for the automatic mode.
Света мало. Понятно, ребят.
Illumination is insufficient. Copy, guys. Ground copies.
Ну, понял, да, Володя, я
Volodya,
нажал кнопку.
I pressed the button, but the camera doesn't want to
Потому что он в автоматическом режиме.
take the picture because it is in the automated mode, and I couldn't hear the shutter operation. Copy, Leroy. Okay.
Переходим обратно на...
You have a go to translate back along the handrails. Copy.
Так,
Already.
Володя, я за 19 год уже пропустил.
Volodya, it is under
Держатель номер 19.
cable clamp number 19. Copy under 19.
Ребята, значит, мы подходим к моменту, когда нужно наблюдать за переводом ОНА из второго положения в первое.
Okay, guys, we are close to the moment when
Положите уровень.
the on antenna is to be
Хорошо. Лерой сейчас
from position 2 to position 1. Understood. Leroy will translate now. Will make a translation now. In process. In work.
Mission Control Moscow will soon command the high-gain communications antenna on the service module to move to its second position so that the crew members can watch its operation.
Так, снимаю полтезу, да? Давай, одно есть.
Removing this one. Yes, one is done.
А? Ниже.
And
In this view, provided by a camera on the Space Station Robotic Arm, Canadarm 2, you can see the crew members working at the other side towards the end of the Russian segment, moving around on the
okay, now
right
please
side.
position yourself to inspect.
То есть мы вытираем руки уже полотенце на руку.
Well, actually, we have the towels
Переход уже на продольный корпус.
and ready to wipe the gloves. You will start wiping the gloves when you are on the longitudinal handrails.
Хорошо.
Copy understood.
Лерой. Сейчас.
Leroy, stand by one.
Давай.
Go ahead, Leroy.
Лерой, ты же станешь себя тоже мог туда пройти. Сейчас антенну будет.
You stay here, I will translate there as well and will lower the antenna. I'm on 2646 and I'm lower. Yes, that's affirm.
Ниже вал, еще ниже. Да, сейчас
Still lower. I'm on 2645, says Leroy,
станция этого находится.
and it is near 19. Copy.
Перевод антенны.
You have a go to issue command to
Да, мы
transfer the antenna.
вал
Yes, we are
и готов
below that position and ready to observe, to monitor.
Команда выдана, ребята. Скоро она может финиш, наблюдайте.
The command has been issued, so you can go ahead and observe and monitor. Okay, copy that, and we're waiting then. That was the response from the crew.
О, в другую сторону пошел. А, вот он. Идет.
Looks like it's going in the different direction, but maybe not. That was Elijan's comment. Everything, the ground is saying everything is fine and no problems at this time. Okay, good. That was Elijan.
Зазоры нормальные. Везде. Опа.
Elijan says everything looks fine. Everything's excellent.
Каких
No obstacles.
главное движение.
I see smooth movement and everything is perfect. Copy, guys.
Она
Без
заняла
дергания, без ничего.
Nothing is jerking or anything. So you have reached the final position, is that correct? Yes.
Хорошо.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Лерой, у меня к тебе еще вопрос.
Leroy, I've got a question for you, or a rather request. Yes.
6:45, да?
Right now you're at 2645, right?
Сейчас 26.
Well, actually handrail 2613.
Понятно.
Okay, 2613, copy that.
Вот можешь ли ты с этого места немножко переместившись в сторону торца агрегата?
This is Mission Control Houston, now 3 hours and 37 minutes into this morning's spacewalk. You can see the crew members working on the Vista service module from this camera view from the
And take
one of the robotic arms cameras.
sit there.
Это эскакация сверху.
It's on the handrail there. No, but the cassette there, we left it behind on top. This is Elijan saying.
Там это было.
То есть с этого места он сейчас
По-моему.
не видит, да?
So, are you saying that Leroy will not be able to see that from where he's located? Elijan answers no, he won't be.
Мишень, мишень.
Понятно.
Okay, copy that.
Сложно удержаться, он будет волей-неволей качаться.
It will be very difficult for him to secure himself in that position because he will be swaying from one side to another, and he won't be able to take pictures of the target.
А так он будет болтаться, можно направление испортить.
And if he's moving from side to side, kind of swaying, then it will be difficult for him to work. Okay, copy that.
Да.
So, Leroy, you were able to take a picture, right? Leroy says yes. Okay, copy that.
Выходим на продольные поручни.
In that case, let's go to the long.
46, 26. 47.
Handrail of 2645 and 2646. Okay, copy that. And then you need to inspect the suits. It's pretty clean, but just in case, here it is for you. That's crew members talking to each other.
Chow and Shripov were able to watch the movement and operation of that high-gain antenna and reported its nominal operation.
After you wipe the suits and the gloves, determine the direction for the jettison and go ahead and jettison the towels. Crew says, okay, copy. Ground says, report when you're done. Selijan says, I'm jettisoning. Leroy says, me too. We are watching, says the ground.
After the spacewalkers work in the area of Russian thrusters on the service module, they inspect each other's spacesuits for any contamination and wipe off their gloves from working on handrails in those areas.
Okay, copy.
And jettison the towels.
Selijan says, you'll secure it right there. Okay, guys. Do you translate back? Our specialists are asking to make sure that the SKK is also seen on the picture. Selijan says yes.
This is Mission Control Houston, now 3 hours and 42 minutes into this morning's spacewalk. In this view, you can occasionally see both crew members working on the outside of these Vesta service modules still. They're now about an hour and a half ahead of schedule as they continue to work through the activities of this spacewalk, the second for this mission, the final one for the Expedition 10.
Volodya, I tried, but it won't work. Maybe because it's frozen here. That's Leroy speaking. So you're saying that the camera won't take pictures, right? Yes, I tried several times. And from the other side too, I made several attempts and the camera is not working at all. Copy. So what are we gonna do, Leroy? We won't be able to take pictures of each other then, right? Well, it's okay, Leroy answers. It's okay, we did take pictures of each other earlier anyway. Leroy says, I think the camera is just frozen. Okay, guys. We won't try to take any more pictures, and let's just focus on trying to lay the cable.
А как, на ваш взгляд, визуально, эта зона, в которой установлена СКК, есть повреждения или нет?
But from your visual inspection, can you say that this area is contaminated? Salijan is asking, contaminated with what? But the ground responding, look at the shell and see if there's contamination. The response from the crew is that, no, not really. Or do you mean that specific area? Did not copy. Say again.
Он не грязный, он
Leroy is saying it's not dirty.
сухой.
It's dry.
Да, чуть грязный.
Well, actually, maybe a little bit dirty. That was Leroy.
Черный свет.
I can see black color here, but it's dry. Okay, copy that. Dirty, black spots, but dry. Copy that. Okay, guys, thank you.
Залежан, как кабель с катушки? Хорошо?
Salijan, how is the cable working? Do you have any problems with the coil? No. Everything's fine.
Хорошо привязал. Ты привязал.
That's tied very tightly. Did you do that? That was Salijan. Volodya, did you do that?
Кого привязал?
Кто привязал?
Who tied the wire ties? Which wire ties are you talking about?
Рабочие все это.
No, but the question is, Salijan is saying, the question is, were you the one preparing this cable coil? Vladimir is responding, no, unfortunately, it wasn't me. We had workers who did this per work documentation. But Salijan is saying, but maybe you at least supervised it, and Vladimir is answering, no, unfortunately, I didn't.
Но уже люди оценки ставят. Ой.
Да?
Надо. Здесь нет зафиксируй, да.
Secure it here. That was said by one of the crew members, did not copy which one.
Так, нахожусь в зоне.
Salizan says, I'm in the zone of
Такой же осталось, какой был в предыдущем.
LVK.
Ну вот только ты быстро дошел-то до конуса. Не сказал.
Okay, that's fine.
Сейчас, я еще не на конусе.
Leroy says, I'm
Принято.
still translating.
На большом диаметре.
Принято.
I'm still on the large diameter. Salizan says, yes, he's still on the large diameter, and the ground says, yes, copy that, still large diameter.
Залежан, как состояние
Ground says, Salizan,
батареи? Наблюдаешь?
do you see the arrays? Is everything okay? Yes, it's normal.
Как и должно быть.
the way it's supposed to be.
Хорошо, Влади, я сейчас в mount diameter. Оба мы находимся в mount diameter. Как принято?
Принято. Номера поручни доложите, пожалуйста.
Leroy is on the small diameter. Okay, please report
24-11.
Numbers for the handrails 24, 34, and 24, 11. Copy that.
Эти движату будет здесь? Не, я готов взять. Я один взял. Давай, возьмешь?
Are we going to use the clamp here? No, it's supposed to be installed right here where I'm at. But just one.
Хорошо, ребята. Значит,
Ground says,
подвязать проволоки на узочку солнечной батареи.
okay guys, just install the wire tie.
Да, подвязывает сейчас.
Yes, we're working on it.
Значит, еще один момент.
And another thing,
На тонусе работаете так, чтобы ногами не закидываться в сторону большого диаметра.
as you're working, try to not cross the line to the large diameter. Selezhan says, Volodya,
Володя,
congratulations. Selezhan, what happened?
хватает кабель.
Кабель смотался и не хватает?
Не хватает? По-моему, не хватит.
We think that the cable is not long enough.
Еще два круга.
We still have about two
Давай, Селезан, насчитать посмотрим.
loops left on the coil, and that's it.
Держателя. И по направлению к плате, посмотри.
Okay,
Здесь я освободить здесь. Сейчас. Состыкован.
connectors are mated. Copy that.
Разъемы состыкован.
Ground says connect. Copy that connectors are mated, and please take the covers with you, caps with you.
Есть свободный разъем ХФП 2-9А. Надо посмотреть, подвязать к соседней вилке.
Also, make sure that you tie
Разъема ХФП 2.8 на 20.
all the free connectors
Если получится.
if it works. Copy.
Но номера на разъемах хорошо различимы, да, Селезан?
And the numbers on the connectors are easily visible, Selezhan, is that correct?
Свободным остался XFP2 9А.
We have still connector HFP2-9A still free. Yes, we confirm.
Селезан, ответь Константинов.
Selezhan, this is Konstantin. Please respond. Selezhan, everything's fine. We see the telemetry already, and we even activated the antenna heating. So thank you very much again.
Володя, кабель зафиксирован по плану полностью.
Leroy says the cable has been secured completely. Thank you very much, Leroy. So everything worked fine for you then.
Одна такая, ну, как тебе сказать?
We have a bit of a
Вот, если взяться опять рукой, повернуть на 90, вот это остается. Ладно, ну хорошо.
Selizan says we have a little bit of a slack here. The ground response, that's okay. That shouldn't be a problem.
Не знаю, мне все-таки висит.
Selizan says I'm not sure. The cable is soft and it's
Я подвязал.
and there's still a slack here. So I would want to make it more taut. And the ground says okay, fine. If you can, go ahead and tie it somehow so that it's more rigid, more firm.
Сейчас посмотрим, как это.
Selizan says, okay, we'll see what I can do here.
Или могу сложить.
Or what I could do is fold it.
Дырочку наоборот разъема вложить, да?
Опять завязываем. Дырочку наоборот разъема.
Are you saying like under the Lyrka clamp? Lyrka clamp, yes. You can go ahead and do that if you want.
Ага.
Selizan, ты сейчас детектор платы смотришь, да? Selizan, ты сейчас детектор платы смотришь, да?
Да, я эски закрываю.
Right now I am closing, Selizan says right now I am closing the MLI flap.
Я сейчас
What about you, Leroy?
40,
I am
23
on handrail 2317 and I'm just sitting here waiting for Selizan. 2317, copy that, thank you. So, small diameter, correct? Yes.
Хорошо, Selizan.
This is Mission Control Houston, now 4 hours and 9 minutes into this morning's spacewalk. The crew members continuing to work through the securing of cabling for the GPS antenna unit. The crew members are now working on the small diameter Zvezda service module, but until they're done with their work, Mission Control Moscow is elected not to re-enable the thrusters of the Zvezda service module on the Russian segment. Moscow will be able to re-enable thrusters very soon, as the crew members are almost complete with these tasks here. The control moment gyroscopes on the space station had been controlling the attitude of the space station while the crew members were working on this Zvezda service module. They did reach their saturation point or limit about 13 minutes ago. They did maintain the attitude of the station much longer than expected, but now the space station is in a free drift mode momentarily until the flight control team here in Houston works with the flight control team in Moscow to re-enable the thrusters when it is safe to do so.
We see, and according to your report, you are on the small diameter in the safe zone, so we want to bring back attitude control. Okay, copy that. So you are not allowed to translate back to the large diameter. Both are saying copy. Ground says copy, thank you, in work. Volodya, yes? What do we do now? Leroy says, be careful here. Salejan says, okay. Ground says, Salejan did not copy, say again. Salejan says, I am on handrail 2242. You are on 2335, 2336, is that correct? 2442. Copy that, 2442. Then
Mission Control Moscow has confirmed verbally with the crew that it is working on the small diameter of the Zvezda service module. We can also see that with this video from a camera on the space station robotic arm as we watch the crew on this forward portion of the Zvezda service module. Both flight control teams will now work to regain the space station's attitude, first re-enabling the thrusters on the Zvezda service module to use that propulsive system to adjust the station's attitude.
move a bit further. Okay. Move your legs here. 180 degrees. This is Leroy speaking. Ground says Leroy and Salejan. Yes? Take a couple of minutes to rest before on the small diameter before you start translating back. Salejan says, hold on, I left the reel behind. Okay. Leroy says okay. Salejan says, Leroy, did you see where I lost the reel? Leroy says, no, I didn't. Salejan says, okay, I see it here. For a moment, I thought that I left it behind. This is it. One of the crew members said that.
Ребят, вы медленно потихоньку переходите к
Ground says, so you guys are slowly translating towards the DC, is that correct? Crew says yes.
Я иду. Хорошо, Салижан.
Okay, very good, Selezhan.
Ладно, значит, работу мы выполнили.
The plan is as follows. We are done with work. Go ahead and inspect each other's Orlands and clean up if you see contamination. If you see some spots or anything at all, then wipe it clean. What do you think? You need about 10 to 12 minutes, right? No more than that. Selezhan says yes, of course. Okay. In that case, we give you a go to proceed.
Что мне не мешает. Секундочку. Находится.
This is Mission Control Houston. Expedition 10 Commander Leroy Chow and Flight Engineer Salazar Sharipov now back in the area of the Piers docking compartment and airlock, starting to wrap up the activities of this morning's spacewalk.
Activate the sublimators, please report.
Катюшка, я готов? Да,
Are you ready? Yes, I'm ready.
Так, мы это... Так, сидите, где вы? Вот так, да?
Is this okay here?
Мы освободим.
Yes.
Свободен. Ага.
Let's crew members talking to each other.
Вот так, а?
So you want like this, Leroy? Hold on. Did you turn off your sublimator? No, not yet.
Делать.
But
Делаем внутри.
I will do it.
Выключать. Выключаем, да?
Should we turn it off? Yes.
Выключим.
Okay. I've turned it off.
Принято, Мираж.
Okay, Leroy, we copied. That was the ground.
У меня тоже отключил.
Citizen says I've turned mine off also. Ground says copy.
Экран теплохода положение 3.
Положение 3.
Now switch to position 3. Both crew members are saying position 3. Okay, copy that. Very good. Go back inside.
Готовы снимать защитное кольцо.
We're ready to remove a protective ring, and that was said by Leroy. Ground says yes, you have a go to remove the protective ring. Crew says copy.
Защитное кольцо снял.
Protective ring removed. As reported by one of the crew members, did not copy which one. Ground says copy.
Да. На место.
Ребята, наверное, подождем еще немножко.
Okay, guys, let's wait a little. Okay.
Давай. Да. Вдвоем люка посмотри.
Citizen says,
Чудищего нет, чтобы когда люк будем закрывать, чтобы ничего не
look inside the hatch, make sure that nothing is in the way when we try to
чисто. Нет,
close the hatch.
внутри. Inside, да? Ага. Да?
Leroy says, okay. Salesian says, is everything clear? Leroy says, yes, everything is clear.
Сейчас сказали нам подождать.
Salesian says, okay, let's wait 5 minutes. Leroy says, yes.
Out. Out. Так, сколько мы поработали?
Salesian says, how long were we working? 6:30.
4 часа, да?
So 4 hours. Leroy says 4 hours. Salesian says 4 hours. Ground says 4 hours. 4.5. Said Salesian, excellent.
Володя, скажешь, когда люк закрывать, хорошо?
Volodya, Salesian says, Volodya, please give us a go to close the hatch. Okay, copy that. I will.
Жалко темно, да, Лерой? Да. Вот посмотри теперь. Не на что смотреть.
Leroy says, now we have time to actually look around, and they start laughing, and Salesian says, too bad that it's dark and there is nothing to look at. Just one big hole, and that's it.
Кажется, руки улетел чуть-чуть еще раз. Да? У тебя? У меня нормально. Нормально? Чуть-чуть. Это от влаги. Ну, может быть, ну, посмотрим. Где на глазу там? Володя?
Salesian says, Volodya, and ground responds yes. Okay, well, I want to thank you.
Я хочу сказать, что Лерой говорит, там чуть-чуть мне кричат, все ушли там. А у меня все нормально.
Leroy says that his gloves were a little bit uncomfortable, but
Вообще,
I was fine.
замечательно.
No problems at all. Everything was just excellent.
В отношении рук имеется в виду.
I'm talking about hands here.
Не мешали кричать.
Потратили время на подгонку.
Okay, copy that. So your time that you spent for the glove fit check was not wasted then.
Перчатки, второй размер тоже нормально.
And the size 2 for the gloves is also correct, right? Yes, says Leroy, and yes, says Salesian.
Герой, а у тебя как подгонка?
Ground says, Leroy, how's your fit check? Do you feel that it changed?
Кажется,
Leroy says, maybe a little bit, but not as much as last time.
А перчатки,
я
если...
не уверен.
А перчатки, если...
Ground says, what about the gloves, Leroy?
На самом деле, может быть,
Leroy says, gloves are fine. I think
для меня.
that this size is actually better for me.
У тебя сейчас тоже был второй размер. У тебя сейчас...
This time you also wore a size 2 gloves, says the ground.
Воду забыли, Лерой? Угу. Воду. Я пил чуть-чуть. Немного.
Sergeant says, I completely forgot about the water. Leroy says, I drank a little bit. Sergeant says, okay, then I'll go ahead and drink mine too.
This is Mission Control Houston. Chow and Sharipov are inside the Piers docking compartment airlock and standing by for a go from Mission Control Moscow to close Piers's hatch.
Сейчас какое давление, Слежан?
What is the pressure now, Sergeant?
Что, меня плохо слышно?
Да, перерывы связи.
Don't you read me? There were dropouts in communications.
Слежан, вы нас слышите?
Sergeant, how do you read us?
Какое давление в отсеке?
Say it again. What is the pressure in the compartment?
50.
250. Ground copies.
This is Mission Control Houston with a view from the camera on the outside of the U.S. Destiny Laboratory module, looking past the starboard 1 truss segment as the station orbits over the southern Pacific Ocean, just about to pass over South America. The Expedition 10 crew members, Commander Leroy Chow and Flight Engineer Saljan Sharipov, are continuing to work through a
Скажите, какое давление в
procedure to repressurize the Piers docking compartment and airlock.
250 millimeters.
Отлично.
250 ground copies. Good. So the hatch is... The leak check has been done. You have a go to perform item 5. In work, item 5. Says Salijan. Point 4.4.422. O2 close EVA. КВД ПХОСУ enabled. Opening КВД ПХОСУ. Ground copies.
открыли ПХОСУ, значит, наше КВД РОПХО разрешен.
KVD PHO is open. KVD ROPHO enabled.
КВД РОПХО. Положение открыто.
KVD ROPHO and
КВД РОПХО.
open. Yes, opening.
Давление в отсеке растет.
Solution, is the pressure increasing?
300 миллиметров.
300 millimeters. Ground copies.
До 590. Потом закрываем.
Up to 590. And then you will have to close the control panel and cover the PHO. Copy.
Давай, мне тоже.
And come on, same to me. Copy.
This is Mission Control Houston. The Expedition 10 crew members are still working through a staged process to repressurize the Piers docking compartment and airlock. Once that is complete, they can work through a procedure to re-enter the cabin of the International Space Station and begin the reactivation of normal operating systems and opening the hatches to the U.S. segment.
Come on. I'm out. Oh, very good.
На свободе, да, ребята?
So you're free guys, aren't you? Yes, we are.
This is Mission Control Houston. The Piers docking compartment and airlock has been repressurized, and the crew members are working their way out of their Orlan Russian spacesuits.
Hold it like this.
Commander Leroy Chow and Flight Engineer Saljan Shripov had completed the second and final spacewalk for Expedition 10 this morning. They worked ahead of schedule for most of the spacewalk and finished in 4 hours and 30 minutes instead of the nearly 6 hours it was expected to take to complete the task this morning. They installed communications equipment on the exterior of the Zvezda service module for the automated transfer vehicle. It's a European cargo carrier that will launch to the space station next year.
Solution, what is the compartment pressure?
Я сейчас из скафандра вылазю.
I'm getting out of the Orlan suit. I can't tell you. Leroy, what is the pressure? The pressure in the compartment. Interference. 585. 585 ground copies.
In the long series of events which Pope John Paul II has missed throughout these past few days, we can add one last one this morning. For the first time in his long papacy, Pope John Paul II has missed his traditional Angelus prayer on the Monday following Easter. Cameras from Vatican television at some point pointed towards the window of the Pope overlooking St. Peter's Square as if he was about to make an appearance, but after a few minutes they turned away, and a few thousand pilgrims who were down in the square hoping to see the Pope were left with basically nothing. And indeed, throughout this past Holy Week, the events at the Vatican have been marked by the Pope's absence or by his silent presence. He missed most of the events throughout the week, including all the masses, and on Easter Sunday the Pope unable to say Mass. He is first and foremost a priest, and it must have been a terrible burden for the Pope not to be able to say that Mass on Easter Sunday. It was delivered by a top Vatican cardinal. The Pope at one point tried to say a few words. He made an appearance, a long appearance, at a window of overlooking St. Peter's Square at some point, trying to say a few words, but he just simply couldn't. A microphone was there ready for him to say something, but all we could hear was just a simple murmur, and so eventually the Pope opted for a silent blessing with his hand. Nevertheless, the crowds, by the tens of thousands yesterday in St. Peter's Square, were ecstatic, some people even in tears. So clearly this Pope, still unable to talk, but able to message and to send a very powerful message of suffering. I'm Alessio Vinci, CNN, reporting from Rome.
An astronaut took a 4.5-hour spacewalk to install equipment, make repairs, and launch a small spacecraft. They followed new safety procedures implemented after the American came too close to a firing thruster during a spacewalk in January.
Der internationalen Raumstation ISS haben die Station verlassen, um Reparaturen an der Außenhülle vorzunehmen. Gleichzeitig werden sie neue Navigationstechnik anbringen. Damit wird das für Ende des Jahres geplante Andocken eines ersten europäischen Transporters an die ISS vorbereitet. Der Amerikaner Chow und der Russe Scharipow werden knapp 6 Stunden außerhalb der Station arbeiten, bevor sie wieder in die ISS zurückkehren.
Die beiden Besatzungsmitglieder der ISS haben an der Außenwand 3 Antennen montiert, die das spätere Andocken eines neuen europäischen Versorgungsschiffes ermöglichen sollen. Zudem setzten die Astronauten den Minisatelliten Nanosputnik im All aus, der Daten über Erdbeben, Fluten und Brände sammeln soll. Die Arbeiten waren schon nach 4,5 Stunden beendet, 90 Minuten früher als geplant.
Die beiden Besatzungsmitglieder der internationalen Raumstation ISS haben bei einem 4,5-stündigen Einsatz mehrere Antennen installiert. Mit ihrer Hilfe soll im kommenden Jahr der erste unbemannte Raumtransporter der Europäischen Weltraumorganisation an die ISS andocken. Außerdem setzten die Astronauten einen kleinen Forschungssatelliten aus.
50 Kilometer über der Erde brachten sie Navigationsantennen an der Raumstation an. Damit sollen in Zukunft die ersten Transporter der Europäischen Weltraumorganisation ESA sicher an der ISS andocken können. Außerdem setzten sie einen kleinen Forschungssatelliten aus. Nach 4 Stunden waren die Arbeiten geschafft.
Thomas Reiter wird als erster deutscher und europäischer Raumfahrer zur internationalen Raumstation ISS fliegen. Der Start ist für Juli geplant mit dem US-Shuttle Atlantis. Reiter hat bereits vor 10 Jahren 179 Tage an Bord der russischen Raumstation Mir verbracht. Der Astronaut wird voraussichtlich 7 Monate an Bord der ISS bleiben.
(18:45 Uhr), hier ist RTL aktuell. Tsunami-Angst in Asien. Bei dem neuen Seebeben vor Indonesien sind bis zu 2000 Menschen gestorben. Hunderttausende waren in Panik aus den Küstenregionen geflohen. Seebeben gestern Abend vor der Küste Indonesiens hat wahrscheinlich 2000 Menschen das Leben gekostet und Millionen Bewohner in der Region in Angst versetzt. Die Erdstöße mit einer Stärke von 8,7 ereigneten sich fast auf den Tag genau 3 Monate, nachdem ein Beben ebenfalls vor der Insel Sumatra einen Tsunami auslöste. Die Flutwelle forderte am 2. Weihnachtsfeiertag schätzungsweise 300.000 Todesopfer. Burkhard Wennemar berichtet.
Vor wenigen Stunden sind die ersten Hilfsgüter in die am schwersten von dem Beben betroffene Insel Nias geflogen worden. Besonders benötigt Nahrung, Wasser und Medizin. Mehr als 80% der mehrstöckigen Gebäude auf der Insel sind zerstört. Bislang wurden allein hier mehr als 400 Leichen geborgen. Doch diese Zahl kann noch drastisch steigen. Diese Zahl ist noch nicht endgültig, denn wir wissen nicht, wie viele Menschen noch unter den Trümmern liegen. In der Nacht waren Hunderttausende Menschen in ganz Südostasien panikartig aus ihren Häusern geflohen, als gegen Mitternacht minutenlang die Erde bebte. Viele Menschen in Banda Aceh übernachteten in der Moschee, die vom Tsunami vor 3 Monaten verschont geblieben war, oder in Notunterkünften. Das Beben war so stark, dass in Indonesien, Indien, Malaysia, Sri Lanka und Thailand sofort Tsunami-Warnungen herausgegeben wurden. Das Epizentrum des neuen Bebens lag nur 300 Kilometer vom Epizentrum des Erdstoßes vom 26. Dezember entfernt, war aber trotzdem nicht mit ihm vergleichbar.
Zunächst einmal war das Beben nicht ganz so stark, es war schwächer. Es hatte eine Magnitude 8,7, während das Beben im Dezember eine Magnitude zwischen 9 und 9,3 hatte. Das bedeutet, dass etwa 10-mal weniger Energie freigesetzt worden ist.
Außerdem gab es bei dem gestrigen Beben nur eine horizontale Verschiebung der Erdplatte. Bei der Katastrophe vor 3 Monaten schob sich eine tektonische Platte unter die andere. Dadurch wurde die Riesenflutwelle ausgelöst. Auch in dieser Nacht werden die meisten Menschen in Indonesien wieder im Freien schlafen. Experten rechnen damit, dass es in den nächsten Wochen und Monaten noch zu mehreren Nachbeben der Stärke 7 kommen wird.
Tag nach dem neuen schweren Seebeben im Indischen Ozean gibt es 2 Reaktionen. In Indonesien Trauer um die möglicherweise bis zu 2000 Getöteten. In der weiteren Region Erleichterung, dass größtenteils eben nicht diese mörderischen Flutwellen über die Küsten schwappten, wie bei der Katastrophe Ende Dezember. Auch die Alarmkette von den Messstationen zu den gefährdeten Menschen hat offenbar besser funktioniert. Das Beben 8,7 auf der Richterskala hatte sein Epizentrum nahe der Spitze von Sumatra. Die schwersten Zerstörungen werden von den vorgelagerten Inseln Nias und Simeulue gemeldet.
Der Flug über die Insel Nias zeigt, was das Beben hier angerichtet hat. Nicht nur primitive, aus Holz und Blech gezimmerte Hütten stürzten ein, auch viele mehrstöckige Gebäude aus Stein hielten dem minutenlangen Beben nicht stand. Unter den Trümmern Leichen. 400 wurden bisher gezählt, bis zu 2000 werden befürchtet. Vielleicht mehr, denn noch immer sind Teile der Insel unzugänglich, Straßen und Brücken zerstört. So wird die internationale Hilfe, die jetzt anläuft, auch nicht alle erreichen können. Dass die meisten mit dem Leben davongekommen sind, liegt daran, dass der gefürchtete Tsunami ausblieb. Denn der Boden unter dem Meer bewegte sich vor allem seitlich. Die ruckartige Bewegung nach oben, die das Wasser auftürmt, blieb aus. Experten hatten schon länger mit dem Beben gerechnet.
Man hat durchaus mit Beben größer Magnitude 8 als Nachbeben rechnen können. Aber dieses Beben hätte man unmittelbar nach dem Hauptbeben erwartet, vielleicht einige Tage oder spätestens einige Wochen danach. Insofern war das ungewöhnlich, konnte aber nicht ausgeschlossen werden.
Es war kurz vor 11 Uhr in der Nacht, als die Erde zitterte und Panik brach aus. Vor allem hier auf Sumatra in der Provinz Aceh wurden schreckliche Erinnerungen wach. 3 Monate ist es erst her, dass der Tsunami Tod und Verwüstung brachte. Also packten sie eilig das Nötigste und flohen, nur weg von der Küste, schnell ins Landesinnere, in höher gelegene Regionen. Und auch am nächsten Tag sitzt der Schreck noch tief. Ich bin verzweifelt, ich muss immer an den Tsunami vor 3 Monaten denken. Ich habe die ganze Nacht kaum geschlafen. Einige Stunden nach dem Beben kehrten die Menschen wie hier in Colombo, der Hauptstadt Sri Lankas, in die Küstenregionen zurück. Die Behörden hatten die Tsunami-Warnungen wieder aufgehoben. Die Regierungen haben offenbar aus der Katastrophe vom Dezember gelernt. Nachdem Geologen aus Japan und den USA die Region von dem Seebeben unterrichtet hatten, wurden die lokalen Behörden schnell informiert. Um 11 Uhr in der Nacht sagten sie, wir sollten fliehen. Wir rannten mit unseren Kindern, einige fielen hin. Wir versuchten, unser Leben zu retten. Warnungen vor einem Tsunami erreichten auch die Touristen in Thailand, wie hier auf Phuket. 3.000 bis 4.000 Urlauber flohen den Behörden zufolge von den Stränden ins Landesinnere. Und einer hatte selbst die Katastrophe im Dezember schon erlebt.
Ich war nicht so beängstigt wie beim ersten Tsunami.
Wir waren nervös, aber in dem Moment waren wir relativ weit oben und fühlten uns recht sicher. Thailand will nach dem erneuten Beben nun den Aufbau eines eigenen Tsunami-Warnsystems beschleunigen. Ende April schon soll es funktionieren.
Es war ein überraschender Auftritt gewesen heute Mittag am Fenster seiner Residenz, hatten ihm die Ärzte doch zu absoluter Ruhe geraten. Zu jenem Zeitpunkt war bereits gemunkelt worden, was der Vatikan wenig später bestätigen sollte. Johannes Paul II. Wird ab heute künstlich ernährt. Dessen ungeachtet großer Jubel auf dem Petersplatz. Mehrere tausend Menschen hofften darauf, dass der Papst diesmal einige Worte an sie richten würde, doch vergebens. Trotz sichtbar großer Anstrengung gelang es Johannes Paul II. Auch diesmal nicht, sich den Gläubigen verständlich mitzuteilen. Überhaupt schien sich sein Gesundheitszustand im Vergleich zum vergangenen Sonntag noch einmal verschlechtert zu haben. Dass der Papst aber sich und seine Krankheit nicht versteckt, sondern offensichtlich ganz bewusst den Weg in die Öffentlichkeit sucht, das beeindruckte heute viele. Er ist sehr schwach, so dieser Priester aus Tansania, aber sein Wille ist sehr stark und das macht uns Mut. Der Papst hat trotzdem gesprochen. Seine Stimme haben wir in uns und das, was er uns sagen wollte, hat er uns mitgeteilt. Jedem von uns hat er eine eigene Botschaft mitgegeben. Gerüchte, wonach der Papst demnächst wieder in die Klinik müsse, werden offiziell jedoch nicht bestätigt. Eine erneute Einlieferung, so hieß es, sei nicht geplant.
Vatican officials insist the Pope continues a slow and progressive recovery and that the decision to feed him through a tube was taken in order to improve his calories intake and not as an emergency procedure to keep the Pope alive. Nevertheless, his health continues to be a concern both inside and outside the Vatican. The surgery to his throat, coupled with the Parkinson's disease, is making it difficult for him to swallow liquid or even semi-solid food, and therefore the need to feed him temporarily through this tube inserted into his nose, a procedure which the Pope began on Tuesday morning, which did not require emergency surgery. Vatican officials insist this is a temporary measure. The Pope continues his day-to-day activities, they say at the Vatican, and that he remains lucid. Analysts, meanwhile, caution against making any parallels between the Pope and Terri Schiavo, the woman in Florida whose feeding tube was removed by court order.
The Pope is not unconscious. The Pope continues to be lucid, therefore, we have to assume, is calling the shots for himself about his course of treatment. Obviously, Terri Schiavo is not. Secondly, this is not immediately life-threatening in the case of the Pope. In the case of Schiavo, obviously, when the water and nutrition is withdrawn, she dies. With the case of the Pope, this does not appear to be that kind of situation.
The Pope made an appearance on Wednesday morning from the window of his apostolic palace overlooking St. Peter's Square. He did look in pain and in a great deal of discomfort. He has indeed lost some weight, but clearly he looked alert, although he is still having a hard time speaking. Meanwhile, the Vatican also says there are no plans at this time to take the Pope back at the hospital. The procedure to feed the Pope through this tube is performed under the supervision of his own doctor at the Vatican. I'm Alessio Vinci, CNN, reporting from Rome.
Back at the Vatican, I mean, how much does that say?
Well, I think what's important to remember is this is not the same as if you or I or any ordinary person decided to stay in their house. He has terrific medical care there. It is really sort of a hospital, a mini hospital in and of itself. So that's important to remember. And as we just heard, as we were just discussing, this may be his choice that if he is in his final hours, that he wants to remain where he is. He wants to remain in his own home. That's a choice that many, many people make, that in their final hours they decide that they want to be at home rather than to be in a hospital. But of course, his home is not like any other. This is a home that has all sorts of medical equipment and medical technology in it.
You know, as we listen to other people that have been talking today, we know that he's had a really rough last 2 days. At the same time, someone was recounting just what Parkinson's disease does to all of this, how it affects your overall ability to fight back when you do get ill.
That's right. The Pope, of course, has Parkinson's disease, and that has a huge impact on someone's health. Parkinson's disease, as we know, it affects the muscles. So that affects your ability to swallow and to take in food. It affects your ability to breathe, the muscles that you use around your lungs. It also affects bladder function, and we know that the Pope had a urinary tract infection and a high fever, and that antibiotics were administered to him yesterday. So the Parkinson's probably has a great deal to do with what he's going through right now.
When you look at this, and you know, we were remarking a little bit earlier, I was talking with Delia Gallagher there in Rome, and she was noting that the Vatican is releasing more information here, really, about the specifics of the Holy Father's medical condition. What's happened over the last 2 days, as you can see?
Well, let's go back to Wednesday morning, and this is East Coast Atlanta, U.S. time. A nasal feeding tube was inserted, and his blood pressure took a drop. And then he had a urinary tract infection, as we discussed, and he was given antibiotics administered to him, and then they said that his condition had stabilized. And then today they said that his condition was very serious, that he was in septic shock, that he had cardiocirculatory collapse, and that means a lack of oxygen going to his major organs. And then, of course, just now they said that the condition was very serious, that the blood pressure was unstable. Actually, that wasn't just now, that was earlier. And so that's with the blood pressure unstable, lack of oxygen. What's happened just recently is kidneys deteriorating and shallow breathing and renal insufficiency. Renal insufficiency means that his, in a phrase, his kidneys just aren't working the way that he is supposed to, and he has very low blood pressure. And so what you're seeing is sort of a cascade of events that show really a gradual decline. And we use the term septic shock. I want to explain that a little bit. Septic shock is overwhelming infection. It leads to the low blood pressure that we were talking about. It also leads to low blood flow to the organs. So obviously these are very grave conditions, Jim.
What would be the outlook for somebody? And it's impossible to really predict this. I doubt that his doctors are able to do that. But I think a lot of people wonder. They hear the words coming from the Vatican, and once again, you got to look at this in the frankness with which people are being given this news seems to be, in some ways, Elizabeth, preparing them for something.
That's right. I mean, certainly when they give these updates every few hours and it just seems to decline all the time, it does not look good. I mean, when people are in this condition, they're usually in the intensive care unit. We're not seeing signs of rebound. We're not hearing from them. There was a fever, we gave antibiotics, the fever went away. We're just hearing that things are getting worse and worse. And it certainly makes it seem like the possibilities of improvement seem pretty slim at this point.
You know, we have talked repeatedly about how he used his suffering in a way to reach out to people who are ill, who are challenged by chronic illness, as he faced with Parkinson's and other things. How useful is that as an example? When you have somebody this public that is dealing with a health crisis or over the years has been dealing with it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think when someone, and especially the Pope, is going through something like this and makes themselves public and shows that they can still function, or, he functioned with Parkinson's disease, which I think is something that's really important to point out. And I certainly heard people with that disease say, you know what, that's really inspirational. That is inspirational to see that he is able to function, that he still goes out in public, and that he is able to cope with a chronic illness. And I think that you can touch people who have a chronic illness. If you're healthy, you can still have an impact on them. But if you have a chronic illness yourself and you're a leader like he is, you touch people that much more. And I think people really have been touched by this Pope and by what he's gone through with his health, but has still persevered, has still gone on.
You know, and you're one of our medical correspondents, I'd like to think the best one in terms of explaining some of these difficult issues. But one of the issues that he seems to be raising here is the spirituality in our own physical human health.
That's right, and how important that is. As a matter of fact, I did a story earlier this week with a gentleman exactly the Pope's age, actually, who lives here in Atlanta, Georgia, and he had pancreatic cancer, which is a very, cancer's never good, but a really horrible kind of cancer to get. And he said, this gentleman, his name is Ed Davis, and he said, I want to get through, I want to see one last Sunday in church. And actually it was this past Sunday, Easter Sunday. And he said to me on Good Friday, I want to go to church on Easter Sunday. And he did. This gentleman went to church on Easter Sunday. This was a man of great faith. And he said, I put my trust in the Lord. I believe in the Lord and that he will do what's best for me. He went to church. He was in a wheelchair. He prayed. He took communion. And he died that evening. And when I was talking to his family, they said his spirit got him through his one last wish, which was to go to church one last time. And I imagine the Pope's spirit has gotten him through so many difficult times with all of the various health problems that he's had, that your spirit can get you through a lot. It got this man through one last Easter Sunday.
What a great story.
Incredible man.
Elizabeth Cohen, thanks so much for being with us.
In so many ways, John Paul II was just the right man at the right time to serve in that papacy. The first real full-fledged television-age pope really had a way of connecting with people at that level, didn't he?
Well, certainly it's true. And another point that was made today by Archbishop McCarrick is that even now, when the Pope is apparently at the end of his life, he finds himself setting an example, they say, of how to die. In suffering, a lot of people I've spoken to here again and again have said, in suffering there's a certain amount of dignity, and they say that is what he's showing at this time, Miles.
Joe Johns in Washington with the faithful there, gathering as they are all over the world right now, as you see live pictures in St. Peter's Square. A lot of somber faces, a lot of prayers being said right this moment for John Paul II. Thank you, Joe. Betty?
We want to go now to CNN's Jim Bitterman, who is in Rome. And Jim, we are looking at these live pictures of so many people gathered in St. Peter's Square. Obviously, the mood is a very somber one.
This is a BBC News special. I'm Brian Hanrahan in Rome. Pope John Paul II has died. There have been many people gathering to mourn him in St. Peter's Square, where an announcement of his death was made a little over 3 hours ago.
Dear brothers and sisters, at 21:37, our much beloved Holy Father John Paul II returned to the home of his father, and we pray for him.
The pontiff had been ill for some time, first with Parkinson's disease, but in recent weeks he began suffering breathing problems. Across Rome, bells have been tolling to signal the Pope's death, and Italy has declared 3 days of national mourning. The leader of the Roman Catholic Church, John Paul II, has died here in Rome. He was 84. We are getting a statement from the Pope's personal spokesman, Dr. Navarro Valls, at this moment.
On February the 22nd, 1996, had been activated. Il Santo Padre Giovanni Paolo II è deceduto questa sera alle 21:37 nel suo appartamento privato. Alle ore 20 era cominciata la celebrazione della Santa Messa, nel corso della quale è stata amministrato al Santo Padre il Santo Viatico e ancora una volta l'unzione degli infermi. Sono state attivate
all the procedures were activated which are envisaged by the apostolic procedure, which is promulgated by John Paul II on the 22nd of February of 1996.
That was a brief statement from Dr. Navarro Valls, repeating very much what was issued in written form a few hours ago when the first news of the announcement was made. It's been a day in which the Vatican has been preparing the way for the Pope's death. We know that he had heart and kidney failure over the last 24 hours. Then today they announced that he had had a high fever. And at that point, the cardinals who visited him began to talk openly of his death within the next few hours. It has been a remarkably open death in which the Vatican has clearly been determined that everybody should know what was happening and there should be none of the confusion and the suspicions that have shrouded papal deaths in the past. In that, it had the stamp of John Paul II himself, a man who's changed this Church while he's been its leader. Gavin Hewitt reports on today's events here in Rome.
It had been the announcement that Rome had long expected.
Carissimi fratelli e sorelle, alle 21:37 il nostro amatissimo.
Dearest brothers and sisters, at 9:27, our beloved Holy Father, John Paul II, returned to the house of our Father. At first, the crowd in St. Peter's Square was silent as it took in Archbishop Sandri's words. Then, many broke down in tears as the Vatican's funeral bell was rung. During the day, they had been chanting the Pope's name, willing him to defy his failing health. Now, some stood with heads bowed, while others sang hymns. One man kissed a picture of the Pope he was holding. There was real affection here for a leader who had travelled more than any other Pope and had fought illness for so long. Many said that this man of strong, unbending faith had been an inspiration.
He was instrumental in my deciding to become a priest and has been an inspiration for me throughout my priesthood. His courage, his tenacity, his evangelical nature that continued to inspire me and continues to inspire the world.
So many mixed emotions, so sad, so somber, but so happy he's called home. It
Peaceful.
Sounds like he was ready.
Sure, I know. A couple weeks ago, he said he had abandoned himself to God's will, and for someone to have that strength and that courage, and that he was at peace with his situation right now. So I think that's how we all can feel.
Exactly, and it sounds like he was still coherent and lucid, up to the final moments of his life, and that's to be able to, pass on with such dignity. That's how he lived his whole life.
In the square, there were people from the Pope's native Poland who remembered his part in ending communism in Eastern Europe.
But I think that we are proud that a Pope was Polish and that it was a huge man for all church, really.
An archbishop told the crowd, "We all feel like orphans this evening." And it was immediately apparent that there'll be a huge outpouring of grief for the man who led the Catholic Church for 26 years. As soon as the Pope's death was announced, people began streaming here to St. Peter's Square, and they're still arriving now. Many of them were in tears, but many of them also spoke warmly about the Pope's struggle over the last few days, saying they were among the most impressive days of his papacy, living out his message that there can be serenity even in the heart of suffering. Gavin Hewitt, BBC News, at the Vatican.
Welcome to CNN's continuing coverage of the death of Pope John Paul II. I'm Hala Garani at CNN Center. Live pictures there of St. Peter's Square as pilgrims gather on this, the first full day since the passing of the pontiff. Pope John Paul II passed away in his Vatican apartment at 9:37 local time Saturday night, ending a papacy that lasted more than 26 years. A huge crowd, as we're seeing there, gathering in St. Peter's Square. There will be a special mass honoring the Pope, scheduled to take place in 30 minutes. Our Jim Bitterman is on the ground there in Rome with more on what's happening, what the mood is, and what to expect in the next few hours. Jim.
Morning, Ala. We're just almost at the limits of the Rome city here, because right at the end of this avenue behind me, Avenue Conciliazione, is the beginning of the Vatican City, another country. And it's the Pope's country. That's where people have gathered this morning by the thousands for this Mass, which is about to begin another half hour or so from now. We're expecting probably several hundred thousands of people here this morning, perhaps coming even as far down the avenue as to our live position down here. It's certainly happened in the past with this Pope. He has brought unbelievable crowds to Rome over the last 26 years. Probably the biggest crowd was during the Jubilee year. They had more than 30,000 30 million people came to Rome in that single year. 30 million faithful came for the Pope Jubilee in 2000. And then during Youth Days, another big crowd, 2 million came for Youth Days here in Rome. So the Pope has always attracted crowds. The police are used to dealing with crowds of this size. They've got the barricades already up this morning. They've brought in portable toilet facilities. They're bringing in fresh water in case it gets too hot, although it's kind of a crisp morning. I wouldn't say looking to get too hot this morning. But people have come in from all sorts of places. A lot of tourists in Rome anyway this time of year, wanting to be here for this rather historic event. But by the same token, there are a lot of Catholic faithful who have come down from villages far outside Rome and have come along to be here for this rather historic moment. Hala?
All right, Jim, we'll be getting back to you in a few minutes with more on what to expect later today in that special mass also that will be said for the Pope. For now, though, reactions, millions of Catholics across Asia are in mourning for the Pope's passing. Prayers were offered in China, although the state doesn't recognize the authority of the Vatican. South Korea's Catholics are remembering John Paul II as well. He visited the country both in 1984 and in 1989. Seoul says it will send an official delegation to the Vatican for Tuesday's funeral. And in the largely Roman Catholic Philippines, a special mass started the official 9 days of mourning. U.S. President George W. Bush has ordered flags at all federal buildings flown at half-staff in America until sunset on the day of the Pope's interment.
The Catholic Church has lost its shepherd. The world has lost a champion of human freedom. And a good and faithful servant of God has been called home. Pope John Paul II left the throne of St. Peter in the same way he ascended to it, as a witness to the dignity of human life. In his native Poland, that witness launched a democratic revolution that swept Eastern Europe and changed the course of history. Throughout the West, John Paul's witness reminded us of our obligation to build a culture of life in which the strong protect the weak. And during the Pope's final years, his witness was made even more powerful by his daily courage in the face of illness and great suffering.
Well, senior officials tell CNN that Mr. Bush will go to the pontiff's funeral, though the White House has not yet made an official announcement about the composition of the U.S. delegation. Now, from Australia to Israel, other current and former world leaders are also mourning the Pope.
First, can I, on behalf of all Australians, extend my condolences and my respects in relation to the death of His Holiness the Pope, this great man who has led the Catholic Church for 26 years, who has been a pillar of strength as well as a provider of great compassion.
The world lost a great spiritual leader and a great human being who managed to deliver the inner spirit of Christianity and projected it into the minds of millions of all faiths. I vividly remember his visit to Israel.
Well, Pope John Paul II made great political impact around the world as well. The Vatican opened diplomatic relations with Israel in 1993, and John Paul II was the first pope to pray inside a synagogue. He visited Australia in 1986, and he drew huge crowds, even though Roman Catholics make up only about a quarter of the population in Australia. All right, let's return to the Eternal City now. Jim Bitterman is standing by. Jim.
Right at the city limits here, because just down the street here is the Vatican City, and that's another country down there. That's the Pope's country, and without a Pope this morning. We're in a period that the Church calls the interregnum. This is a period between the two Popes' reigns, and over the centuries, sometimes this period has lasted months and in some cases even years. That's not expected to be the case this time around. What's going to happen over the next few days here is that the very first order of business is going to be tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock when there's a general congregation of all the cardinals. Now, this is kind of an interesting group because it's not just the cardinals who will vote for the Pope, but it's also, and many of them, all, I think, except for 3 cardinals were actually named by the Pope, but it also includes the over 80 cardinals, that group of people who, some of whom were named by Paul VI, and who can talk about the kind of issues that face the church. They will also be taking care of the church's business. They have to organize the funeral. One of the very first orders of business is going to decide which day the funeral is going to be held. It's generally 5 to 6 days after the death of the Pope. So that would make it Thursday or Friday of the coming week. And then there starts a 9-day period of mourning. And during that period of mourning, there will be masses every day. The cardinals themselves may be getting together and talking about the kind of issues that are in front of the church and what kind of issues the church faces. Now, under the Pope's rules, which he set down back in 1996, the church rules, the Pope's rules for transition, the conclave, which will elect the new Pope, has to begin within 15 days after his death, between 15 and 20 days. The maximum time is 20 days, but it can't go longer than that. Then, of course, how long does the conclave last? Well, that depends on how long the cardinals debate the issues that are in front of the church and debate who should be the next Pope and who should lead the church. But all eyes last night here were focused on other events. They were focused on the passing of the Pope. And Walter Rogers took a look at exactly how events unfolded last night here.
Morning in the last day of John Paul II's papacy. The bright light belied the darkness which was to come. In a classic Vatican euphemism, a church spokesman reported the pontiff had, quote, a difficult and compromising moment at dawn. Saturday's medical bulletins of John Paul pointed to the worst. They said the Pope's condition was very serious. By late morning, he was racked by a high fever. Throughout the day, crowds gathered in St. Peter's Square. The Pope was now slipping in and out of consciousness. Yet a Vatican spokesman denied the Pope was in a coma. Some of the faithful prayed for a miracle. Others prayed the Lord would be merciful and quickly open heaven's gates to receive John Paul II. Since Thursday, the Vatican bureaucracy had been preparing the world for the inevitable end. The Italian news agency ANSA reported the Pope's death process was, quote, irreversible. Rather prematurely, an Italian newspaper effectively announced His Holiness dead 12 hours before the fact. La Stampa anticipating the inevitable.
John Paul II has returned to his home.
The actual announcement of the end of the Pope's suffering was almost anticlimactic. Yet outside in St. Peter's Square, the tears, the grief, the drama of death and darkness were terribly real. And as Rome's bells began to sound, no one needed to ask for whom they tolled. Walter Rogers, CNN, Rome.
First of a number of tears that will no doubt be shed over the next few days here for Pope John Paul II. A number of people coming this morning, hundreds of thousands are expected here at this Mass, and over the next few days for the funeral of the Pope, perhaps as many as 2 million. At least that's what the police are bracing for. A lot of the people that come here are faithful, a lot of curious tourists. Some want to be here for a historical moment. But over the course of the last few days, with the Pope being sick and all, people have been coming now for, perhaps 2 or 3 weeks to St. Peter's Square who want to just be there, express their faith as Catholics, or just to be there for historical events. Alessio Vinci took a look at some of the people who came to the square.
A traditional Polish song accompanies the Pope on his final journey. Lord, say my name and I will follow your will, go the lyrics. It was one of the Pope's favorite songs, in which devotion to God takes center stage. And now that God has called him to his side, they have come all the way from Poland to sing it one last time below the window of their beloved Pope.
Nowy zacznę dziś mój. Jestem Now I'm here and I don't know what I may do. It's terrible.
By the thousands, they gathered in St. Peter's Square into the early hours of Sunday morning to light a candle, to pause for thought, to pray together, and to be together. For some, it was like losing a relative.
I feel like a daughter who loses his father.
And while in recent days his death had been widely expected, when the time came, it still felt too soon. Alessio Vinci, CNN, Vatican City.
Sunday now, of course, Sunday morning in time for Mass at St. Peter's. We'll be taking a look at that Mass when it starts about 15 minutes from now. But first, back to Hala Garani in Atlanta. Hala?
Jim, what's the mood like today? Is it still mournful sadness, or is it more turning toward the celebration of a rich and varied pontificate?
You know, I think it's a real mix. I mean, if you're a faithful Catholic, the passing of someone really is not a totally sad occasion, because the fact is you believe in an afterlife, and you believe that you'll go on to perhaps a better life. And so I think in this case particularly, everyone believes that the Pope has gone on to better things. And last night, very interesting last night, the reaction in St. Peter's Square when the news came out, there was at first applause, which to many might seem a little bit odd or undignified or something, but in fact it was applause for a man who led an extraordinary life. And I think also applause because I think those faithful in the crowd understand that this is just another step in the Pope's journey, just a step that'll get him closer to heaven. Alan?
All right.
Prayers around the world this day remembering Pope John Paul II.
You're looking at a live picture here coming to you from the Vatican. Cardinals, archbishops, diplomatic dignitaries among the thousands who have gathered there in Vatican City to pay their respects. Pope John Paul II lying on the funeral bier there in the center of your screen. He is going to lie in state there at the Vatican for several days. The public will have an opportunity to pay their final respects. It's believed sometime perhaps as early as tomorrow evening that process might begin. Hundreds of thousands of people in all could be coming to the Vatican at this time. Some say that they expect to see thousands of tourists coming in from countries all over the world. Certainly the leaders of the Roman Catholic Church are going to be converging on Rome and Vatican City during this process. The papal funeral likely to be held on Wednesday. The Pope's wishes for his burial have not been announced, may not be for some time, but he, of course, would possibly be buried right in St. Peter's. You see the Swiss guards there in their colorful uniforms. Part of the history, the heritage, if you will, of the Vatican.
In John Paul's native Poland, a special mass for the late pontiff, this one in Krakow, the city where he spent much of his adult life, and near his hometown of Wadowice. He was often called the uncrowned king of Poland for his unceasing efforts to combat communism. John Paul was first ordained a priest in Krakow in 1946 and served as Archbishop of Krakow until his election as head of the Roman Catholic Church in 1978. His promotion to the papacy only elevated his vast stature in Poland, even among the country's non-Catholics.
In the city where three faiths intersect, Palestinians and Jews, as well as Christians alike, mourning the death of the Pope, Catholic residents of Jerusalem gathered earlier for Mass at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Jewish leaders have praised the pontiff as a champion of peace and reconciliation. In Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus, bells tolled at the Church of the Nativity. The Pope last visited the Holy Land in 2000. During that visit, he tried to mend the rifts between Palestinians and Israelis, and those between Catholics and Jews, Christians and Muslims. Well, we did get a report, a medical report from the Vatican this morning. Let's go back now live to Rome and CNN's Jim Bitterman. Jim?
Hi, Jim. Right, we're just now at the end of the viewing session with the Pope. He was on display for a number of members of the leading churchmen and for members of the diplomatic corps here in Rome. And that has now ended. We understand that public viewing of the Pope's body will take place perhaps at the end of the day tomorrow. There was a general congregation, there will be a general congregation tomorrow morning around 10:30. They'll make these kind of decisions about exactly what it is they want to do over the next few days, the exact time for public viewing for the Pope, but also at what time during the week the Pope's funeral will be held. It's supposed to be under church rules somewhere between 4 and 6 days after the Pope dies. That would put it around Thursday or Friday, but all those arrangements will have to be decided tomorrow when all of the cardinals get together in their general congregation of cardinals. These are not just the cardinals who are going to vote on the next Pope, but who are also here in Rome, happen to be over 80 and retired. They get a chance to have their say also in these congregations, which in effect rule the church in this interregnum period. Jim?
Now, in terms of the Vatican statement on the cause of death on this, I understand that a death certificate has been filed.
Right, that took place about 9:30 this morning. Dr. Renato Busonetti, the Pope's personal physician, throughout all of the papacy, basically gathered together with the Carmelingo and a couple of other top churchmen at the papal apartments and certified the Pope's death. The Vatican press office a short while later issued a statement talking about the cause of death, and it was not surprisingly almost exactly what we've been hearing about over the last few days as the Pope was suffering. Basically, the immediate cause of death was septic shock and irreversible cardiocirculatory collapse, and that was affected negatively, of course, by the Pope's Parkinson's disease and progressive episodes of respiratory problems. So essentially, all of the things that we knew about were the things that combined to in the end, kill the Pope. One interesting sort of sidelight on this was that, the traditional way to determine whether the Pope is dead is with a silver hammer and a tap on the forehead and calling out the Pope's name. We don't know if any of that was done, or the silver hammer practice, I think, was abandoned some papacies ago. But one thing that reflects modern times a bit, they did apparently, according to the statement from the press office, for 20 minutes do electrocardio tests on the Pope to verify that he was dead. And it was only after that they issued the announcement to the world that the Pope had died. Jim?
Everyone knew that there would be some kind of reaction that would come when the Pope passed on, given his age, given his medical conditions. This wasn't entirely unexpected. Everybody is certain of that. But is it something of a surprise to see that young people spent the entire night there in relatively, cold weather in Rome to stay with the Pope?
Well, I think, there are a lot of reasons that people were in the square both last night and this morning. I think, we just talked to those two young people, and I think one of the things that they indicate, I think, is that there's a fair amount of curiosity about this whole process, that, the church has so much tradition wrapped up in it that people are drawn to that, and they like to sort of see this play out, even though they're not particularly Catholic. Also, there's a feeling this is a historical moment, whether you're Catholic or not. If you were in Rome today, I think you would want to at least be witness to some of these events, because they, in fact, just are historical events. Having said that, of course, there are an awful lot of faithful out here, too, who've come from all over the world. I was just talking to a young Canadian guy who was up in Toronto for the World Youth Days and had memories of the Pope's visit up in Toronto. I mean, obviously, he was out here for reasons of faith, and I think a lot of the people in the square were here for exactly those reasons. Jim?
Jim Bitterman reporting to us there live near the Vatican. Thank you very much, Jim.
Hundreds of people celebrated Mass at Moscow's main Catholic cathedral just a short time ago. In a statement, Russian President Vladimir Putin described John Paul II as a wise man who worked tirelessly to bridge the gulf between the Roman Catholic and Orthodox churches. Former Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev, the first Soviet leader to meet a pope, called John Paul the #1 humanist on this planet.
The Pope was firmly opposed to the latest U.S.-led war in Iraq, and he was remembered there in services in Baghdad. There were not many people present for the Mass at the Church of St. Joseph, but the emotion was heartfelt. This was a Chaldean Christian church.
Sunday morning, a Requiem Mass was held at London's Westminster Cathedral for Pope John Paul II. His papal visit in 1982 made him the first pope to ever visit the predominantly Protestant country. Earlier, Britain's Queen Elizabeth II expressed her deep sorrow at the death of Pope John Paul II.
Britain, mainly Protestant, of course, but there is a minority of some 4 million Roman Catholics, including the wife of Prime Minister Tony Blair. The Prime Minister joined other British politicians, religious leaders, as well as members of the royal family, the Queen as well, remembering Pope John Paul II. For Mr. Blair, it was the pontiff's bravery that inspired, in his words, the people of all faiths.
The Pope was obviously somebody who led a remarkable life. Going through the Nazi occupation of Poland and then the communist occupation of Poland and surviving, indeed triumphing over both, and he played a great part in the fall of communism. But I think that the reason why there's been such an outpouring of feeling over the past few days is because of the nature of the man himself. And even if you're not a Catholic, even if you're not a Christian, in fact, even if you have no religious faith at all, what people could see in Pope John Paul was a man of true and profound spiritual faith, a shining example of what that faith should mean. And to anyone who ever met him, as I was fortunate enough to do, you could see that very clearly. But actually, even people who never met him, never came near him, could see that from afar. And I think that is the reason why the world has, in this rather extraordinary way, come together over the past few days to mark his passing.